Blog Talk Radio.
This is Franchise Today, brought to you by FRM Solutions, providers of the best-in-class software solutions for franchise relationship management. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast with the SoLink front of the house.
Yes, this is Franchise Today, and I'm Stan Friedman, welcoming you to Episode 6 of this 10th consecutive season of the Franchise Today podcast. Today is Wednesday, February 20th, 2019, and I'm coming to you today from home base, Atlanta, Georgia, and my Lennox Tower studio powered by FRM Solutions. And it's time now for the SoLink front of the house, where we take a quick look each week at some things that are making news or making noise in franchising. On the news front, the countdown is nearly complete as we are now mere days away from the IFA's 59th annual convention at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. This year's convention features more than 50 educational sessions, including concurrent learning tracks for franchisees, franchisors, and suppliers of all sizes, summits, and networking events. And let's not forget dynamic keynote speakers that include the incredible Gary Vaynerchuk, Carly Fiorina, Patrick Sweeney, and more. Plus, this year's exhibit hall will be packed with nearly 400 suppliers, all of whom are there to provide products and services in support of sustainable growth and sensible franchising. That, of course, includes FRM Solutions. You'll find us on aisle 500 and booths 541 and 543. If you're not registered yet, time's running out, but it's still not too late. You can find a link to the full agenda and registration information on the Franchise Today Facebook page or at the IFA's homepage at franchise.org. And now for another note in the front of the house, I want to wish kudos to my former partners, Matt Friedman and Adam Scott, as Wing Zone is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Great concept, great brand. Had 4 of the best years of my life with those guys as we were growing the brand nationally. Wing Zone today still very relevant and adding a great deal more to the menu, including quesadillas, black bean burgers, grilled cheese, a more diverse menu for a more diverse audience. A couple of new flavors in their profiles this year, Ragin' Cajun and Buffalo Ranch, and last year they introduced a really successful Korean barbecue. So watch for Wing Zone as they continue to grow. They are focused on the southeastern U.S. for 2019, 20, and 21, with 12 restaurants projected to open this year, 16 more in 2020, and 20 restaurants in 2021. Happy anniversary, Matt and Adam, and keep on growing, and just make sure we keep at least one of those Wing Zones in my neighborhood, because I still love it. And still eat it at least a couple of times more a month than I should. Also today in the front of the house, my good friend Ryan Hicks, who's been doubling as my producer these past few weeks since I've gone solo on Franchise Today. He and I both have a surprise, a special guest who's waiting right now in the green room, who many in this audience know, but few have actually heard much from over the past few months. I'm talking about the legendary Jerry Darnell. Hey, Ryan, bring up your mic if you would.
Stan, the mic is live, and I also have to note, I think we should give you the nickname the Wing King from the previous little blip there, but we do have a very special guest, and yeah. So
Wing King, just for pure transparency, I can't do that because my brother from another mother in Buffalo, New York, that has founded the Buffalo Wing Festival, Drew Cerza, without any doubt or question, wears the title Wing King. He has ominously called me the chairman. I've been nicknamed and dubbed the chairman. So as the chairman of the Buffalo Wing Hall of Fame, the chairman worked for me. I don't want to be the Wing King. Drew, sorry, not looking to step on your toes. So Ryan, you and Jerry have worked on several projects together over the years, and as well, Jerry and I have been working on many as well. you and I, because we are so close to Jerry, know a whole lot more about this past year and what is now morphed into Jerry 2.0. Isn't that right?
Yeah, well, Jerry 2.0 is first and foremost, Jerry's one of my favorite people in the world. Jerry's always the master behind the scenes, the super connector, and on our daily and weekly calls, he is absolutely amazing. But yeah, we have a lot of really good things moving, and Jerry is the man for sure.
So while you and I could spend an hour, and I'm sure that our guest Mark wouldn't really appreciate that today, because this is his hour and for the large part of the podcast. But who better than Jerry to tell us what's going on in his world? And with that, let's bring him on. So, Jerry Darnell, it's been an interesting year for you, my brother, and it's led to some lifestyle changes. Why don't you clue us in on what you've been up to and how well you're doing?
Well, I am doing better than I ever thought I would. I'm focused on my health this year, doing very little traveling, and that's what I'm supposed to do this year. And Stan knows a lot more about it and can tell you, and many of you that will see him at the convention, he's got some pictures to share with you, and I'm excited, and I will be at the convention next year.
Yeah, so Jerry, I mean, when I say lifestyle changes, here's how I know Jerry's made some lifestyle changes. You know, he had an event earlier in the year that scared him, and he took it seriously, and he went into the hospital and had a long recovery of physical therapy and a lot of it. And so I saw a picture of Jerry a few weeks ago where he was down some 65 or 70 pounds. He was doing something I've not seen Jerry do in a long, long time. He was standing straight up, and you know, he made a decision. He made a choice. You could have gone to the convention if you wanted to, couldn't you, Jerry?
I sure could have, but I elected not to, and actually I'll be working with many of my clients and probably you and Ryan remotely from here while you're at the conference.
As is always the case. But listen, seeing you on your feet, Jerry, and knowing that you're actually walking with a cane and getting rid of the scooters, getting healthy and taking care of yourself and making good decisions about where your priorities are, screams volumes to me that says Jerry 2.0 is here to stay. So I'm proud of you, brother, and I'm glad you're on the mend, and let this be a greeting to many people who have missed hearing your voice. I know you're back on Facebook. Everybody has seen you again, but nobody's talked to you in a while, or at least not enough people have talked to you in a while. So send your greetings to Franchise Today's audience, Jerry, and we'll move on to the rest of the program, knowing that we've all been better off having a visit with you first this morning.
Well, anyway, I want to wish everybody a great convention, and I'll be working behind the scenes back here and in touch with many of you, and you will see me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And Stan, Ryan, thank you both. Love you both, and I'll be with you next year out there.
We'll see you soon, Jerry. Take care and give a hug to the Bond Stir.
You got it.
There you go. All right, well, there you have it, the front of the house. And the front of the house is brought to you today by SoulLink, providers of the amazing technology for loss prevention that does what Apple and Android did for cell phones, they've done for point-of-sale and security camera systems. They've actually made them smarter. Whether you operate a single unit or a multi-unit empire, or if you're the franchisor or executive of a retail or restaurant brand that's concerned with unit-level economics, please take my advice and learn more about SoulLink today. When deployed, SoulLink's technology captures instances of exceptional behavior at all of your sites. These instances can be bad or good. Either way, SoulLink records everything that goes on in the front and the back of the house, eliminating the need for review of hours of tape to view these exceptions. SoulLink's technology captures it all and provides reports that direct your attention to the specific video clips of those exceptional transactions. SoulLink gives you full visibility into every action and transaction at every site from any device and does so on demand, taking you right to the day's notable events unusual transactions, or unauthorized activity. And what's best is it does so utilizing your current point of sale and security camera systems. It actually provides added value from existing POS cameras and other digital systems. There are no new cameras or hardware purchases required for SolLink to work for you. And like I said, SolLink catches it all, both bad and good. If you've got someone on a shift that's upselling while others aren't, SolLink will capture that and report it to you. Find out more about this amazing technology at booth 956 at IFA. And of course, you can always find them online at sollink.com. I want to take a brief minute before bringing on today's guest to also thank last week's guests, KeyBank executives Don Graves, Barb Smith, and Jim Fliss, who made news last week right here on Franchise Today when they told us about KeyBank's plans to do well by doing good with a deep commitment in the franchising space in the form of a $150,000 donation to the IFA's Educational Foundation in support of research, education, and information for the promotion of financial dignity and franchise business ownership. It's their hope that this will help educate and release those entrapped by generational cycles of dependency in low and moderate income markets and inspire the creation of entrepreneurial franchise businesses, creating jobs and opportunity for members of those communities as well as all communities at large. This includes veterans, women, millennials, and in all markets nationwide, all of those who can own their businesses and thus own their lives. You'll find Jim Fliss and the KeyBank team in booth 812 at Mandalay Bay in just a few days during the IFA convention, and of course, you can find them online at keybank.com. And now, on to today's guest. Mark A. Belanger, or as my Google Voice calls him, Mark A. Belanger, is an experienced principal partner with time-tested results in management consulting, business development, business planning, ops, management, coaching, sales, and hospitality. Over the past 25 years, Mark has brought his skills and talents to some very impressive, if not iconic brands, both in and out of food. Brands such as Starbucks, Dunkin' Brands, Barnes & Noble, El Pollo Loco, and others. For the past 3.5 years, Mark's been principally involved in the growth and development of the Old Chicago pizza brand at CraftWorks Restaurant. And he currently serves as president of CraftWorks Restaurants and Breweries, which in addition to Old Chicago, is the nation's leading operator, franchisor, and licensor of brewery and craft beer-focused dining restaurants, owning, operating, and licensing over 200 locations across the U.S. and Taiwan, with its primary concepts also including Rock Bottom Restaurant and Brewery, Gordon Biersch Breweries, and strong regional brands that include the Chop House Brewery and Big River Grill and Brewing Works. This past November, in the acquisition of Logan's Steakhouse, CraftWorks Holdings was born, and Mark continues to serve as president of the 390-store chain, which now includes Logan Steakhouses with locations spanning 40 states and the District of Columbia, as well as overseas. Sounds like a lot to get your head around, Mark. So thanks for making the time to carve out some time and join us here on Franchise Today.
Well, Stan, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And Ryan, thank you for driving today. I appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for the time. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
So despite a significant difference in opinion that you and I share about Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, we've been friends for quite some time, thanks to an introduction many years ago by Lynette McKee, someone we've both known and admired for years. That notwithstanding, Mark, let's begin this segment as is usually done on Franchise Today by acknowledging that franchise is not an intentional profession. Most nobody that we know, other than second-generation families of franchising, actually goes to school and studies with intention to become a franchisor. In your case, that might be mitigated some as you did attend Nova University and on their franchising program. Isn't that right?
That is correct. I'm proud to say that I'm a CFE, Franchise Certified Executive, that had the opportunity to attend their sessions through the IFA and meeting great people like yourself, as well as Lynette and Ryan And Jerry, it's great to hear Jerry is back on his feet too. That I couldn't be more proud. As we look at the industry, one of the things that I've taken away with being in franchising for as long as I have is you've said this best, is you pick up people along the way. You said that to me at the beginning of our relationship. You say it to me almost every time we see each other. And my takeaway from that is you're absolutely right. And there are givers and there's takers in the world. And we choose to surround ourselves with givers. And certainly Stan, yourself, and the fine group of folks that you've introduced me to over the years are all givers. And I couldn't be prouder to be associated with not only the IFA and their great educational program that they provide through the CFE program, but also just being in the community of franchising. Because you're right, when I started off, I was my first job in the industry was a dishwasher, and to think back to those days back in Maine, boy, have times changed.
So when you became a dishwasher, it wasn't because you were intentionally thinking about a career in food service or franchising. It was probably because you needed a job. So how did the franchise bug bite you, Mark? What were you doing and where were you when you realized that your career track was going to take you into this thing called franchising?
That's a great question, Stan. I think it goes back to the Starbucks days, the early days at Starbucks when Howard was firmly at the helm, Howard Schultz, and we were purely a company-operated model. Primarily based in Seattle, Chicago, and then when I signed on in 2004 in Boston. And there was this, as we started to build that brand and being part of that, there was a request to have Starbucks locations in more areas other than just street stores, and it was the airports that was our first step into licensing at SeaTac Airport that was really the first introduction to licensing and this word franchising. So it goes back to the early days in the 90s when my career started at Starbucks.
And how much time?
Fast forward to
how much time do you spend with Starbucks?
I was there for almost 10 and a half years.
All right.
Yeah,
that was
so
quite
when I
an
started,
education.
it absolutely was. I tell people this a lot, is that, when I started at Starbucks, I was a young man and grew up and really cut my teeth in business through the education at Starbucks. When we started, we had about 225 restaurants, and when I left, we had about 7,800. So it was a tremendous learning experience for sure, on top of rewarding, to say the least.
So fast forward the tape for us from there, Mark. What came after Starbucks?
So I was recruited to go to Dunkin' Brands, and what's beautiful about being at Starbucks is once you've been there for 10 years, you're able to take a coffee break, take a hiatus, which I was about to take my coffee break for a year. That's a great program with great benefits. I think they still do that today. I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I was there. But Dunkin' Brands wasn't even Dunkin' Brands at the time. It was Allied Domet QSR, which was the second largest spirit and wines company in the world, owned Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin-Robbins, and at the time a brand out of California called Togo's. So I was recruited to come in to help them launch their espresso platform in Dunkin' Donuts. And that's really, I'd say, Stan, where learning about franchising, and you think about the heritage of Dunkin' Donuts and Bill Rosenberg starting the IFA and the connection there, right, back in the 50s, is a pretty neat experience. And certainly getting educated on an accelerated level at franchising, and that's really where my paths crossed with the great Lynette McKee, and teaching and having her take me under her wing to introduce me to folks like yourself, as well as many other great executives in the franchise world. I couldn't be more blessed with that opportunity. And one of the things that came out of that experience is it's all about relationships. You hear it said often, but what does it really mean? It really does mean about when you go back to you pick up people along the way, is really listening and engaging with folks and doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. I think that those are critical pieces, and giving back. Lynette's always taught me that, hey, look, you may not get a deal or you may not close a deal in the timeline that you want, but it's all about the relationship that you're building as you're going through that process. And I think you, Stan, the years that we've spent together interacting through different brands, the relationship has stayed true and strong, even if the brands that we're responsible for leading or being part of has changed. And I can say the same thing about Ryan.
Thus, the comment that I share so often about we change shirts, but we collect people. And that's exactly what it is. People that you meet in one place, worthy of knowing again. And in the franchise world, as small as it is, we make career moves and we make changes, but the people that were part of our lives in one place are certainly worth something to us and even more to us in the places that we go from there and forward. Mark, what years were you at Allied Domecq when it was Dunkin'? When you were at Dunkin' and owned by Allied Domecq, what years were those?
I started in 2003, and then we were purchased and sold, if you will, to a conglomerate of private equity. T.H. Lee, Bain, and Carlyle purchased Dunkin' for $2.4 billion. As you may remember, it was a record-setting purchase at the time. And I will tell you that was also my first foray into private equity and learning about private equity and building some great relationships there with some key executives and directors that were leading those brands. So the goal there was to take Dunkin' national in the U.S., because as you may or may not recall, Dunkin' was predominantly an 800-pound gorilla in New England and hadn't really expanded across the U.S. Past the Mississippi. And that my team was tasked after we launched Espresso to work on setting Dunkin' Donuts and setting a flag back in California, because I kind of joked when I started at Dunkin' that there really wasn't any new market that Dunkin' hadn't been in. They had expanded quite rapidly through the 50s and 60s. I was surprised to find out when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2008 that the first Dunkin' Donuts in Phoenix, Arizona opened in the 50s. So it was really about going back and reintroducing the brand to consumers that maybe grew up with the great commercials of Time to Make the Donuts, to introducing them to the great coffee that they have and serve today with Dunkin'.
I have some memories of doing battle with Dunkin' in my Blimpie days, which would have been in the 90s. And, Quiznos was on the rise then. Subway was already the 800-pound gorilla. And then here comes Dunkin' brands in conjunction with Baskin and Togo's out there offering something they used to call combos and trombos. So they'd have people, prospective franchisees, that were not only buying multi-units, but they were buying across the brands and putting up these Dunkin', Baskin, Togo locations to try to round out menu offerings across 3 day parts. And they gave us a run. I mean, they may not have made it out as far west as you were looking for them, but they caused some pain in my Blimpie world back in the day, Mark.
You think about the complexity of that, too, a combo and a trombo running 3 or 4 brands underneath one roof. We're blessed today with having 11 brands, as you mentioned earlier, with CraftWorks Holdings, with, the most recent acquisition with Logan's Roadhouse, the original Roadhouse, I might add. Logan's was the first in 1991 to open in Kentucky. And, I've always said that you can't have a strong number 1 without a strong number 2. And then this brand called Texas Roadhouse came along and started growing rapidly as well throughout the 90s and the 2000s. So Texas Roadhouse was the original mesquite wood-fired grilled steakhouse that started in the Southeast, and we're excited to have them as part of our portfolio. And we're in the early stages of preparing that brand to start franchising as well, which couldn't be more excited with the leadership team that we have under Hazem Oath as our CEO and chairman under the new holding company, and then to have the great iconic brands that we have today, as you highlighted. We've got some exciting times. As one of my great mentors, John Luther, once said, is if you ain't changing, you're dying. And certainly when you look at what's going on in the restaurant landscape in America, is change is the only constant, and keeping up with the palates of America has tested us all for sure.
So, Mark, walk us through a little bit more of the career path and the places that you've been, and help us understand the roles that you have played and the eyes from which you've viewed franchising along the way. Most of it, I know, has been food-oriented, but, you had some retail that was non-food with Barnes & Noble. And were you always in the development on the development end of the business, or were there times where you were looking through the paradigm of operations as well?
Yeah, great question. No, as a matter of fact, I pride myself on being a true restaurant operator. I started as an operator. I started as a dishwasher and had the classic career journey through the restaurant industry of going from dishwasher to busboy to waiter to bartender to restaurant manager and regional manager along the way. And the development side of franchising really was picked up along the way as default. When I was with Dunkin', we had the franchising team reporting in as a dotted line underneath my leadership in the growth model. And I really did like that portion of the business and enjoyed interacting with candidates and awarding and granting franchises and awarding franchises to, aspiring entrepreneurs or tremendously successful business individuals that were looking to diversify their portfolio. But operations has always been in my DNA. As Stan, you and I have talked, it took some time off in between Barnes & Noble and El Pollo Loco, and found myself on two competitive barbecue teams traveling around the country competing at some of the biggest events that barbecue has to offer.
I remember.
So the creative juices are still there, if you will. But I pride myself in knowing how to work my way through the kitchen, and I think that benefits you as well as you're evaluating in our world today. When you're evaluating operators, is do they have the right DNA? Are they passionate about their people and care about what they do and the food that they serve, right? Because at the end of the day, it is all about the people and the hospitality that we provide. We have a saying here at CraftWorks Holding, it's passion to serve. And, that's something that we look for. But to answer your question, it really was coming through operations and picking up the development side. So even today, as we speak, my team's still responsible for the licensing and the franchising operations of the business. So not only do you meet myself and my sales team on the front end of engaging with us, but we also stay with you through the whole process. And I've designed that purposely just through observing, mistakes where, as you've seen over the years, Stan, when you have a well-intentioned sales team that's out selling something, that's their goal, is to sell it and close it and move on, and then you're handed off to another team. Well, in our case, we found that it's really better to stay with the executive in that team. We find that the synergies around the relationship stay stronger over time. And you're right, I did try some different things outside of food. I thought I wanted to get out of food. I was obviously in coffee for 21 years of my life, and thought I wanted to get out of coffee as well. But it always seems that once you're in the food business, it always seems to just bring you back in, and it's where my passion is. And my stepdad always said when I was young is, hey, people got to eat. So I've always held those words, and it's true. People got to eat, and what we're focused on now at CraftWorks Holdings is really about quality and the passion to serve our guests every day. So we're excited for the next journey in the CraftWorks Holdings chapter of taking a brand that was iconic in the early days, like Logan's or even, Old Chicago Pizza and Tap Room, which is known as being the craft beer authority, where you can come in and try beers from not only around the world, but also local and regional beers that are being brewed in your neighborhoods close to you, which couldn't be more excited about.
We're going to take a short break, Mark, but when we come back from that break, I want to talk more about the brands and the consumer experience that CraftWorks is responsible for delivering, some of the recent successes that you've had in growing the Old Chicago brand, and then talk about the franchising side of business and and who it is that you should be talking with and who should be talking with you, and places where they can find out more about the opportunities that you guys are providing.
Looking forward to it.
And we'll take a break.
Franchise Today will be right back. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is produced and presented each week by FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM and document management software designed specifically for franchising. FRM enables real-time business intelligence, communication, and collaboration between all members of the franchisor's team and their prospective and existing franchisees. This empowers your teams to simply and seamlessly track, access, and manage all communications to and from prospective and existing franchisees, including texts. Legal and compliance is simplified too, with FRM's document management, and even site visits can be digitally facilitated and scored with FRM. Make today the day you give FRM a look, and assure that all your candidate and franchisee correspondence, including texts, are being permanently tracked and archived in candidate and franchisee records. FRM even provides state-of-the-art digital experiences for your prospective franchisees, replacing old-style virtual brochures. There are no long-term contracts required, multiple upgrades each year at no additional cost, no excuses, just solutions. Look for FRM at the upcoming IFA convention. We'll be in booth 541 and 543, and of course, you can always find us online at frmsolutions.com. So, Mark, let's talk a little about the consumer side. And with so many brands, you have a primary or secondary and tertiary responsibility across those brands, or are you focused specifically on one or two? How does that look in your day-to-day world?
Yeah, no, great question, and I wanted to clarify that. So my direct role is president of global franchise development. So the team is accountable for all the brands when it comes to growing those brands. And some brands we are maintaining and holding on, and then there are other brands like our crown jewel of Old Chicago Pizza and Tap Room that we are fully accelerated and growing. We've most recently just prepared an opportunity to actually grow our Rock Bottom brewery as well. So all of our primarily restaurants, when it looks at the three core brands, would be Old Chicago Pizza and Tap Room, known for handcrafted pizza, specializing in that, as well as local and regional craft beer. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have Logan's Roadhouse, which is a leading mid-scale steakhouse serving mesquite wood-fired steaks. We are looking to prepare that brand to start franchising. And then lastly, we have a restaurant out of our brewery group called Rock Bottom Brewery Restaurant. All of our breweries are restaurant-centric. So we have 75 breweries that are attached to restaurants with brands like you mentioned earlier with Gordon Biersch or the Chop House, which you and I have had dinner at before, and wonderful experience there throughout the country. So right now, the three growth brands that I'm looking to grow over the next several years and start to build pipeline are really Old Chicago, Logan's Roadhouse, and eventually we'll be looking at the Rock Bottom brand. And what's great about the Logan's Roadhouse is, we've done very little marketing with that brand when it comes to franchising, no marketing actually, and we're getting calls asking and inquiring about it. And I have to thank our competitor, Texas Roadhouse, for their tremendous success in growing and doing what they do, and some of the financials that we're reporting. We feel like we're prepared to also be able to compete and grow over the next several years with franchisees.
What's the consumer experience, before we get into the business side? What's the customer experience at Logan's? What is the customer experience? Because clearly, if the market is lighting up without any real effort, there's got to be a happy customer base that's driving that kind of interest.
Absolutely, yeah. What's cool about our brands is they're fun, right? Let's think about it. We're in the beer, pizza, and steak business, right?
Oh boy!
As you look, right. What gets better than that? So when you think about Logan's, you come as you are. you know, you come as you are, casual, and it serves guests from all age groups. You know, whether it is your family coming in to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary or a special event within the family, or it's, you know, some friends getting together to get caught up that haven't seen each other in a few years. They can have a great service, great meal with some fine beverages as well. And I would say that about Old Chicago as well, is, you know, that's kind of our everyday Joe kind of place where it's unpretentious. If you want to catch a game with your friends and family, certainly Old Chicago is geared to be a sports bar environment, but also family friendly. And I think I've heard that often said from many consumers as well as investors, that it's incredible the diversity that you see in our restaurants, and also the multiple generations, where you could have some millennials sitting at a high top in the bar, and then you've got the multi-generational family having a birthday party in the private dining room. We really go ahead.
I'm familiar with I'm not familiar with Logan's, but I was impressed with Old Chicago and how there are two universes, there are two customer bases. The thing I noticed when you brought me the first time, there are two separate demographics that are cohabitating the same environment at the same time, and each is doing what they want without being an impediment to the other. So I know of many places that call themselves sports bars, whether they're national or regional brands, franchised or otherwise, that have these clubs. You know, it's all about the drinking and not really the food, or it's all about the food and not so much the beer. But what I noticed about Old Chicago is how you rotate seasonal brands or seasonal beers in and out all year long. And so for the serious person on the bar side of life, you guys are doing some pretty serious things in the craft beer business that keeps your customer base happy. And in the dining room with those families are not bothered by any of that. They're getting what they want because the food is good as well as the beverage. And that's, to me, the thing that I think stands out about Old Chicago.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the beer awards that we've received, you know, through the Great American Beer Festival, which I know you've partaken in as well, as the World Beer Cup. You know, we've been brewing beer for over 40 years as well. We at one point owned Boulder Beer Company under the foundation and leadership of a gentleman by the name of Frank Day. Frank was our founder for several brands, including Old Chicago and the Rock Bottom brand. And, you know, many people in the beer world, you know, the Jim Cott of the world with Boston Beer, or as everyone knows them, Sam Adams, has paid accolades to, you know, our brands being really the foundation or the cornerstone for the craft beer craze in America. So, you know, you often see that why is there a correlation with great craft beer at the time in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s with Colorado, or specifically Boulder? And a lot of it can be attributed right back to Frank. I mean, in 1976, he opened Old Chicago Pizza and Tap Room in Boulder, Colorado, with 110 beers. So it was technically also the first restaurant loyalty program in the U.S., where if you came in and drank 110 beers, you would be rewarded, which we still have today. It's called the World Beer Tour. And I think about it. I was alive in 1976. I wasn't partaking in adult beverages yet, but to think about 1976, where would you get 110 beers? It'd be remarkable, you know, to think about that. There's an old joke in the beer business: is what does a canoe and American beer in 1976 have in common? And the saying is that they were both close to water.
That is funny. Hey, you know, you talk about the Great American Beer Festival. You know, my memory of that festival is a thank you to you when a couple, maybe 3 years ago, when West Coast Franchise Expo, MFV, moved from California to Denver that year. And we were there, and the Great American Beer Festival was going on at the same time. And I had a friend of mine, a former NBA iconic top 20 player of all time, Rick Barry, was joining me walking the show for Franchise Expo West. And my good friend, Mark Belanger, comes along with a couple of passes that made us rock star celebrities. I think we were enlisted as Gordon Biersch Brewmasters or something. And Rick and I and Mark get to walk into the Great American Beer Festival and get treated like rock stars, not because I was accompanied by iconic Rick Barry. Yeah, there were several people who did recognize him, but it was the badges that we were wearing that made us all rock stars, right? What did that badge say? We were Brewmeisters, or we were something.
You were official brewers. Yeah, you were part of the brewers, the elite, fraternity of American brewers. You were inside the huddle for sure. And what a great time. If you haven't had a chance to experience the Great American Beer Festival, it is like no other event in the world, really, where you have over 2,300 breweries from around the world come in to compete with the best of their beer in various categories, and the categories continue to grow, with just the creativity of brewers. Brewers are a lot like artists. Every one of them is very uniquely different and very passionate about what they do, and we're blessed with having 75 of our own brewers under the leadership of Tom Dargan, our VP of Brewing, who's every much a character as you'll ever meet, but so smart and passionate about what he does. So if you get a chance, our beers have been heavily awarded there over the years. We Rock Bottom Brewery won Small Brew Pub of the Year not too long ago, if you think about it. So, with 32 restaurants in the U.S., we're very proud of the brands there. But if you get a chance to go out, as Stan said, it's quite a life experience, and they'll see over 75,000 people over the weekend, and it's a 2-day event, and I'm told that the event sells out in a couple of hours. So yeah, having those badges that day, Stan, or that weekend was certainly a memory. Great memory.
It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. The place was like the size of maybe 100 Costco's. I mean, it was huge, just huge.
Huge.
And I've never walked any place in any kind of a festival, any kind of an environment I've ever been, where because of the badge I was wearing, people are thrusting beers in my hand. Here, taste this, taste this. Taste mine. I want you to sample this. And it was just an incredible experience that I can't thank you enough for. In fact, I think that was probably the first time that I've ever seen cannabis-infused beer being offered anywhere, but where else but Denver, right? So
that was the first festival. Yeah, that was the first festival for that to be. That was a real big deal, and continues to evolve, as they say, at this point in time.
I'm going to probably post some pictures on the Franchise Today Facebook page of some of my memories of that festival and some of the good times that were had. Thank you for sharing that with us, and thanks for helping me remember it again today, that you brought that memory back around, Mark. So listen, in the time we've got left, we really do need to get into some discussion about the franchise opportunities and what those look like and where they're being offered, if they're regional or local. Are they single unit, multi-unit? Are they area development? Tell us a bit about the various types of opportunities between and across the Logan's and Old Chicago brands that you're growing. What can the audience learn about?
No, that's great. Thank you for that. As we kicked off the show with being givers and takers, we are givers, and what we're focused on at this point in time is providing the opportunity in small towns across America, as well as larger towns. And Hazem and I have made a strategic change this year. Historically, we would only sell or provide the opportunity to be granted a franchise agreement or license through multiple units, 3 to 5 or more. So that left a lot of folks that wanted to get into the restaurant space or wanted to diversify their portfolio left on the sidelines. So in the beginning of 2019, we changed that up, and we are now awarding single unit franchises. So what's kind of neat about that is I had a list of probably 60 or 70 folks that were sitting on the sidelines, and we went back and called all those folks, and sure enough, there were 40 people that were still interested and wanted to, still passionate about our brand. So that really opened up some great opportunity for some folks in, say El Paso, Texas, where, even though when you count Juarez and El Paso together is over 1 million people, there really isn't a huge amount of opportunity. So it gives that individual in El Paso, Texas, an opportunity. to grow with our brands. So we're continuing to look for single and also multi-unit individuals. Ideally, the candidate would be someone that is already in the restaurant business and has years of experience and maybe looking to diversify their portfolio. Let's say they don't have a craft beer or pizza play or a steakhouse play. We now will be awarding the opportunity to compete with Texas Roadhouse throughout America with Logan's, which we feel very proud. We have a new prototype that's working really well in Nashville, and that's what we'll be growing with. We continue to evolve our Old Chicago Pizza and Tap Room, where it's not just about a freestanding 5,000-foot facility, but we've looked to diversify that where we are now entering into the hotel space. We now have 21 locations in hotels in various sizes and formats. So we're excited about that with our Old Chicago brand. And then Rock Bottom, again, being in the brewing business, that's a whole nother level of complexity. Because not only do you have to run a restaurant really well, but it's also about a manufacturing process around brewing beer. And so we are looking to have our first franchise location in Wichita, Kansas. I was out there a couple of weeks ago in a beautiful developed project, and we will have the corner main site that every developer dreams for in that site with some great franchise partners. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our franchise partners here at CraftWorks Holdings. When I started 3 years ago, we did not have a franchise advisory council. And we put that into place fairly quickly. And let's face it, anyone that's in franchising already knows this, that, without the franchisees' feedback, buy-in, and input, really what do you have? And so we really do lean on our franchise advisories, the leadership of that council to provide feedback and direction to us as we go forward. And we found that to be tremendously beneficial. The other thing a lot of folks don't know about, and we don't necessarily market it as well as maybe we could or share, is we also have something called the CraftWorks Shares Foundation. It's an independent business unit that's run as a 501c, where we provide opportunities for folks to go back to school and continue their education. It's self-funded through not only donations through different events that we host, but also through our employees as well, giving in. We also have it covered for any type of catastrophic matters that may come up in someone's daily lives. We provide that support. And most recently, we have our franchise partners joining in with the CraftWorks Shares Foundation as well, which we're tremendously excited about. And then lastly, any market that we go into, when we open new restaurants, each franchise partner aligns with a local charity. And so as we're going through our reps of preparing the restaurant to open to the public, we host a series of nights through VIP invited nights where we collect donations for that charity. And I got to tell you, some of the giving that's gone on at some of these pre-openings, Stan, has been absolutely remarkable. I mean, game-changing for some of these local charities that our franchise partners have identified in their market. So it goes back to the theme at the beginning. Givers and takers. We choose to be givers and giving back to our community in every restaurant opening, and I couldn't be prouder of our franchise partners for the efforts and energy that they put into those events before we open.
So you mentioned a little bit about Texas and Kansas. Where else are we looking for franchisees, Mark?
So from a market perspective, all markets are open. At this point in time, I'd love to continue to grow our brands in the Southeast, in the Florida and Georgia markets, as well as Alabama. And we have some opportunity there, as well as Ohio. If there's someone out there that has an interest in getting into our brands and looking at our brands, I would love to speak with he or she or them about the state of Ohio. We've had several folks that have expressed interest, but I think that we could do really well in Ohio. We've been there once before, and I think we can continue to go there. And then on both seacoasts, our brands are open for continued growth as well. What's interesting is we've been blessed over the last 24 months. We've signed over 70 new development deals, which you think about that is pretty remarkable in this day and age with some of the competitive headwinds that are out there. But our franchisees that we call family, our franchise partners, continue to believe in us, and we believe in them. So we look forward to having some folks step up. And again, if you're in Ohio and you're thinking about diversifying your portfolio or stepping into the restaurant business, we'd love to speak with you.
What about upcoming expos and shows? I know you're going to be out at the convention, but I don't think you're exhibiting, are you?
I will be there physically. Yeah, we have a lot going on right now. We're also in 21 airports throughout the U.S. with our brands, and we've also, simultaneous to the IFA, we have the Airport Experience Show going on. So all of the different operators and the mayor's offices all get together for their annual convention that's taking place just down the street from the IFA convention. So I will be at two places at once, and we will be on the show floor there with our old Chicago and CraftWorks Holdings brands there. So I will be bouncing back and forth. I'd love to, if you get a chance, I'd love to have you stop by. If you happen to be in the airport business and attending both, please send me your cheat sheets on how you're going to be at two places at once, because I'm still trying to figure that one out right now.
And what about other expos upcoming, Mark? Any place like Multi-Unit, or where else will people find you?
Yeah, thanks. We'll be at several. Multi-Unit, obviously, we'll be at the Restaurant Finance Development Conference at the end of the year. And then in between there's several hotel conferences that we'll be attending as well. The AHOA in San Diego that comes up in April, as well as the Restaurant Leadership Conference. For those of you that have attended that in Scottsdale, Arizona every year, that's a wonderful event for operators. We'll be attending and showing there as well. But obviously, the Multi-Unit is kind of our Super Bowl, if you will, for conferences, and then coupled with the Restaurant Finance and Development Conference at the end of the year.
Hey, I want to do something too before I ask for you to tell the audience how to stay in touch with you and learn more. You did talk about your Franchise Advisory Council and your stakeholders and your franchise partners, and I just want to give a shout out to Kelly Punchard in your office in Chattanooga, who is one incredible support person on your team that I've gotten to know over the years, which makes you a very lucky guy, because people like Kelly make it easy for guys like you and me to look better at what we do. It's the Kellys and Ryan helping me backstage with this program, and too often we don't say hello and thank those folks enough. So there you go. I've put my 2 cents in and invite yours.
No, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. You're only as good as the team you have around you, and I've been blessed with having Kelly as well as Mary Billick and Stephen Kalk, who also support our franchise partners in our sales process as well. And then Dominique Lascaro, who heads up all of our marketing. They do a wonderful job for us. So thank you for mentioning that, and we wouldn't be where we are without them. So how can you get a hold of me? Mark, as you mentioned, Mark A. Belanger, as Google says, or if you're in Quebec or France, I guess. A little known fact is Belanger or Belanger, as they say in Quebec, is kind of like the Smith of Eastern Canada. If you were in Quebec City and you opened up a phone book, if those still exist, you'd find that there'd be a whole lot of pages of Belangers, a lot of hockey players up in our family up there.
Baseball,
so how can
too.
You get a hold
baseball.
Of me?
Let's not forget baseball.
Yes, baseball too. Yeah, the Belanger family has been strong, and a couple of different teams throughout the years for sure. So you can reach me at mbelanger, BELANGER, at CWRestaurants, that's with an S.com. Or feel free to reach out to me directly at the office at 303-664-4000. And would love the opportunity, if you haven't had a chance, to go to craftworks.com or ocfranchising.com to learn more about our brands and what we're doing. So I can't thank you enough for the time that you've shared with and the time that we've spent together here today.
Mark, in a minute or two, is there anything else that I should have asked you and didn't?
Well, you kicked off the show, no pun intended, with a football piece. So, listen, I always have to remind people that growing up in New England, the Patriots weren't very good in my youth. The Steve Grogan years of, Schaefer Stadium and the 70s and the 80s were not kind to a Patriots fan, or for that matter, the New England fans, other than we had our awesome Celtics, of course, with, headed up with Bird McHale. But, we've been blessed there. You know, it's my son does not know anything but New England winning, and you know, some of that I love, and some of it's just not fair because there was a lot of heartache growing up for sure as a New England fan. So I just want to remind everybody of that. You know, as Stan continues to stay strong with his Falcons Hawks, and
somebody's got to
do going on there. Yeah. And I didn't bring up 28-3. I didn't bring that up.
Ooh. No, you saved that for the very end. From a high note all the way to that. Hey, Mark, all kidding aside, I can't thank you enough for your friendship and for being here today and for sharing with the audience some of the nuggets that have led to the success of your career. And I wish you the very best in 2019 and ahead, and can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Thank you again. Really appreciate the time.
All right, well, that's a wrap on another episode of Franchise Today. Next week, we're going to be coming to you from the IFA convention, and we're going to have a very special edition of Franchise Today. We've been bringing on more and more voices, and I would expect that next week we'll have multiples of more voices on next week's episode as well. Can't wait to see everybody at convention. Travel safely getting there. I know there's some weather issues that are going to be plaguing certain parts of the country, so a little bit of patience will go a long, long way. But get to Vegas, where they've seen some snow this week, if you can believe that or not. I think it's the first time in 20 years. But travel well, be safe, and I look forward to seeing everybody at Mandalay Bay. Until then, my name is Stan Friedman, wishing you the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Franchise Today is a production of FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM tools to empower relationships with prospective and existing franchisees. No excuses, just solutions. Find them online at frmsolutions.com. Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another live episode of Franchise Today. Or, as always, download episodes on demand at blogtalkradio.com or iTunes.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. At American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.